Mangal. Planes have always given a new perspective to our human imagination. Since ancient times, humans have been opposed to their own limits. Even with our current technology, it can take months or years to reach there. Such a long travel time for crewed missions, especially in this dangerous space, can create very serious problems, such as exposure to radiation, muscle loss, and mental fatigue. But what if we could cut this months-long travel time in half? This is where it will come in handy for us. Nuclear thermal propulsion is a revolutionary technology that can make this 140 million mile distance more achievable and practical. For decades, all our space missions have mainly depended on chemical rockets. They are effective in taking us to space, but for deep space exploration, they are not an efficient option. On the other hand, nuclear propulsion, which will be powered by nuclear fission, has the capability to increase thrust, improve fuel efficiency, and even reduce travel time. In fact, National Aeronautics and Space Administration and Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency are working together on this project. And there is also a plan to prepare a prototype nuclear engine for demonstration by 2027. However, designing a safe and efficient nuclear engine that can take us to Mars is not an easy task. These reactors must be able to withstand extremely high temperatures and heavy thrust demands. These engines will have to operate under extreme conditions, and engineers have accepted this challenge. They are working on an engine that not only meets the standards, but it should also be so compact and lightweight that it can be easily launched into space. In this video, we are going to understand the science behind nuclear thermal propulsion. How is this different from chemical rockets? And what kind of challenges are engineers facing in developing this type of engine? And how is this technique not suitable for future Mars missions? Can it open doors? How nuclear thermal propulsion works. Nuclear thermal propulsion is powered by nuclear fission. In fission, neutrons collide with uranium atoms, causing these atoms to split. And a large amount of energy is released. This energy is used to heat the propellant, which is usually hydrogen. It is used to heat it. Then it is expelled out of the rocket nozzle at high speed, which generates thrust. The concept behind nuclear thermal propulsion and traditional rockets is almost the same. However, if we compare them, the main difference is that in chemical rockets, the chemical reaction between fuel and oxidizer produces thrust, whereas in nuclear thermal propulsion, that is nuclear thermal propulsion, the propellant is heated by a nuclear reactor. This makes the propulsion system even more efficient. In fact, the specific impulse of a nuclear propulsion system, which is a measure of fuel efficiency, is twice that of chemical rockets. This means that these engines can provide more thrust while using less fuel. Apart from this, nuclear thermal propulsion engines are compact and can operate at very high temperatures, which makes them capable of generating high power density. This power density is almost 10 times higher compared to our traditional nuclear power plants. And that's why this technology claims to cut our journey to Mars in half. However, building a proper nuclear engine is still a big challenge for us. On Earth, traditional nuclear reactors use light water reactors, which can operate even at low uranium concentrations. But to go into space, we need a very special type of uranium called high-assay low-enriched uranium or high-assay low-enriched uranium. This is safer than highly enriched uranium, but still, we will need a larger quantity of it to generate power. But this definitely ensures safety, and that's exactly what we need in space missions. And that's why researchers are also working on developing advanced materials so that HALEU's performance can be improved even further, especially in the extreme environments of space. National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Demonstration Rocket for Agile Cislunar Operations Project Demonstration Rocket for Agile Cislunar Operations by Lockheed Martin and BWX Technologies. Together, they are aiming to demonstrate the first nuclear thermal propulsion engine by 2027. 2027. This engine will not only power deep space missions, but it can also be used for satellite protection and many other purposes in Earth's orbit or in space. Although nuclear thermal propulsion has a lot of potential, it will still take time to make this technology fully operational. Engineers still have to solve many challenges, such as increasing fuel efficiency and keeping the temperature under control, so that it can be ensured that this entire system works without any problems during long missions to Mars. Nuclear versus chemical propulsion. Chemical propulsion has been the backbone of our space exploration for decades. Whether it's about reaching Earth's orbit or journeys to the moon and even beyond, chemical propulsion has always served as a reliable means. But when it comes to long space journeys, the limitations of these rockets start to become apparent. In the propulsion system, it is necessary to carry both fuel and oxidizer. This increases the payload weight and reduces fuel efficiency. On a long journey to Mars, this system might not seem practical. On the other hand, a nuclear thermal propulsion system does not require an oxidizer to operate. In this, the heat generated from the nuclear fission reaction heats the hydrogen propellant, which then rapidly expands and exits, giving us thrust. Now, since these systems do not depend on an oxidizer, their specific impulse becomes almost twice that of chemical rockets. This means that nuclear thermal propulsion powered rockets can travel at higher speeds and cover greater distances, and their payload is also very low. Apart from this, a big advantage is that nuclear thermal propulsion engines can generate continuous thrust for long duration missions. Chemical rockets are better for higher acceleration in less time, like during launch and while maneuvering in orbit. But continuous thrust makes nuclear thermal propulsion engines ideal for Mars missions and interstellar missions. Even after this, there are still many challenges in developing nuclear thermal propulsion. These engines will operate under extreme conditions, like when the engine starts, the temperature will become very high. And when the engine is shut down, the negative temperature of space will freeze it. It's also important to deal with these rapid thermal changes. Engineers will have to ensure that the reactor's core remains stable during the mission. That during deep space travel, there should be no overheating or malfunction in the middle of the journey, otherwise astronauts will be lost in this darkness-filled space. However, engineers are continuously improving engine designs, keeping these safety maneuvers in mind. The challenge of building a nuclear rocket, designing a nuclear thermal propulsion engine, is not limited to just generating thrust from that engine. This is an initiative to build a system that can withstand the extreme environment of space. Space engine reactors are much more powerful compared to the reactors present on Earth. It has to operate at high temperatures, and then keeping the system lightweight is also a big challenge. The biggest challenge in this is to develop a special kind of helium fuel for that rocket. For now, the material being used in the fuel is less fissile. This means a material that splits even when struck by low energy neutrons. Because it is less fissile, we will need to load more fuel. This will also affect the efficiency of the engine. Engineers are trying to solve this problem with advanced materials and innovative reactor design. There is currently no such engine existing on Earth. Researchers are also developing custom software tools for this, so that the engine's behavior can be simulated during the mission. However, these simulations will require significant computational power. Georgia Tech is working on it. Our team is working on such tools that can optimize these calculations, so that its performance can be modeled during the mission in space. Safety is also a very big priority in this project. The reactor should remain stable throughout the mission. For this, engineers are exploring the automation control system. The development of the nuclear thermal propulsion engine could prove to be a turning point for human civilization in space travel. As soon as its prototype is released in 2027, new paths will open up for space travel and space exploration in the future. This technology will not only cut the journey to Mars in half, but it will also increase the possibility of a safer and more practical journey for astronauts. In this new era of space travel, nuclear propulsion in space will be an important part of the future. The journey to Mars is just the beginning. November 1971, about 80 million kilometers away from Earth, a small spacecraft, National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Mariner 9, reaches the orbit of Mars. The scientists hold their breath. This is the first time a spacecraft will observe the surface of Mars from such a close distance. Everyone in mission control is staring intently at the screen. But as soon as Mariner 9 sends its first pictures, instead of joy, a silence falls over the scientists' faces. Nothing was clearly visible on the screen. No valleys, no mountains, and no red soil of Mars. All that could be seen was a blurry, terrifying sheet of dust that had swallowed the entire planet. This was a mega dust storm on Mars, so massive that it plunged the entire planet into deep darkness. Mariner 9, it kept wandering uselessly like this for the next few months because Mars had already delivered its first powerful blow. Have you ever wondered how dangerous Mars, the place where we humans dream of making our second home, can actually be? That red planet, for which space agencies are spending billions of dollars and people like Elon Musk are working day and night. There are some forces present there that can destroy all our missions in an instant. Today we will talk about the horrors of Mars, those ultimate forces that not only challenge our rovers and spacecraft, but they can also destroy future Mars colonies. This is the story of Mars, of those forces before which even the most advanced human technology seems insignificant. Mars, the mysterious red sphere that has fascinated humans with its secrets for centuries. In ancient civilizations, it was considered a symbol of power and mystery. The people of ancient Rome considered it to be Mars, the god of war. So, the civilizations of Babylon associated its blood-like color with bad omens and war. The people of ancient Egypt also worshipped it as a deity, whereas in Indian astrology, it was considered a symbol of valor and energy as Mars. But today, when we have come very close to it, we are realizing that Mars is not only beautiful, but also dangerous and frightening. Its atmosphere is only 1% compared to Earth's, and the temperature here can drop down to minus 60 degrees Celsius. At night, it gets even colder and can drop to minus 140 degrees Celsius. The surface of Mars is like a barren desert. Here, you will see the sky, high and massive rocks, and the world's largest volcano, Olympus Mons. But the real power of Mars lies in its environment, which is so hostile that even our strongest missions may have to kneel before it. That dust storm of 1971 was not the only incident. These storms keep occurring on Mars every few years. Because of these, many of our mechanical warriors have been buried in its red soil. And when these storms come, they take over the entire planet. But these sandstorms are just the beginning. There are many forces on the surface of Mars that could become the biggest threat to our missions and future colonies. Today's Mars. In this journey, we will look at those forces to see just how big a challenge they are for humanity. Let's start by talking about Mars's biggest and most terrifying weapon, its mega dust storms. In 2018, National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Opportunity rover, ours, a warrior that kept working steadfastly on the surface of Mars for 15 years, but it fell victim to just such a storm. That storm was so massive that it covered more than half of Mars. Opportunity's solar panels were covered with dust and it was never able to charge again. As a result, our $1 billion mission ended forever just because dust settled on the solar panels. If you look at it, these storms on Mars are completely different from the storms that come on Earth. On Earth, storms are formed by water and air. But the atmosphere of Mars is so thin that even if the wind speed is 100 kilometers per hour, you won't see much effect. But the Martian dust is so fine that it mixes with the wind and plunges the entire planet into darkness. The dust on Mars is so fine that it can get into the smallest places and cause damage. It can get into your equipment, the machinery, solar panels, and even into the joints of your spacesuit and cause damage. Sun. In 2001, a storm that hit Mars was so massive that it increased the planet's global temperature by up to 30 degrees. This storm lasted for months and even scientists had to wait for weeks. They waited to see when the dust would settle so they could observe the surface of Mars. If we build a colony on Mars, what effect will these storms have on our colony? The solar panels we install there will become useless, visibility will drop to zero, and if these storms come without any warning, it will be dangerous for those working far away. The lives of astronauts could also be at risk, and staying outside for longer periods will increase the danger of radiation even more. Machines could even break down because of dust getting into the equipment. Space agencies like National Aeronautics and Space Administration and European Space Agency are struggling with this problem. They are considering dust-resistant materials, electrostatic cleaning systems, and underground habitats, so that somehow these challenges of Mars can be dealt with. But so far, we haven't found any perfect solution. The dust storms on Mars are so unpredictable that they can come at any time, and when they do, they cause complete destruction. The second major force of Mars is radiation. On Earth, we are protected from cosmic rays and solar radiation because of the magnetic field and its thick atmosphere. But Mars lost its magnetic field millions of years ago. Scientists believe that when its core started to cool down, its magnetic field started to weaken. After the magnetic field disappeared, its atmosphere also doesn't provide any protection here. The Martian atmosphere is so thin that it can't block radiation. Because of this, the sun's deadly radiation is found on the surface of Mars about 700 times more than on Earth. National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Curiosity rover examined Mars radiation levels from 2012-2013, yielding alarming results. The amount of radiation received on Mars in a single day is more than what Earth receives in an entire year. If a person lives in Mars colonies without protection, they could develop cancer, DNA damage, and other serious diseases within just a few months. This radiation is dangerous not only for humans but also for the spacecraft we send there. Because of this, electronic systems can experience glitches, just like what happened with the Mars Odyssey orbiter in 2003, when a solar flare temporarily damaged its instruments. We know that radiation is the biggest challenge for future colonies on Mars, and to deal with this, National Aeronautics and Space Administration and European Space Agency are working on lead-line suits, radiation shields, and underground bunkers. Some scientists suggest that Mars's lava tubes, which are natural underground caves on Mars, can be used for habitation because they can protect us from radiation to some extent. But these solutions are expensive and not completely effective either, like in 1869 on Earth due to the Carrington event solar flare had happened. So if such a solar flare hits Mars as well, all our technology will fail in the same way. The temperature on Mars is also not any less dangerous. During the day, its surface stays as warm as 20 degrees Celsius. But at night, this temperature drops down to minus 140 degrees Celsius. This extreme temperature swing is dangerous for both humans and machines. Our rovers like Perseverance have to be equipped with thermal blankets, radioisotope heaters, and advanced insulation. And only then are they able to operate in the extreme temperatures of Mars. But it's impossible to protect every piece of equipment like this for a colony on Mars. Spacesuits for humans will have to be designed in such a way that they can withstand both heat and cold. But if any suit fails, the astronaut's life will instantly be in danger. Apart from this, chemicals like perchlorates are found in Martian soil, which become even more dangerous in the cold. Perchlorates release toxins and are harmful for the body. We know that it is poisonous. But apart from this, it will also corrode our equipment, meaning that because of oxygen, the equipment will rust. In 2008, the Phoenix lander discovered this chemical, and since then, scientists have been concerned about how big a threat this could pose to Mars colonies. This is a big headache for space agencies because on Mars, we will have to protect even the smallest things. Mars's atmospheric pressure is only 0.96% of Earth's. This means that if an astronaut goes outside without a spacesuit, their blood will start to boil immediately. Due to low pressure, there is not only a lack of oxygen, but liquid water also cannot stay on its surface. And that's why water on Mars is found only in the form of ice or vapor. This low pressure will make construction on Mars even more difficult. We will have to make our habitat strong enough to withstand this pressure difference. Even a small leak could put the entire habitat in danger. In 1999, National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Mars Climate Orbiter crashed because of a miscalculation of this low pressure. That mission failed because of a mistake between metric and imperial units. But the low pressure made that mistake even more fatal. That's why Mars's low pressure is a force that cannot be ignored. The surface of Mars is not just a vast desert of sand and rocks. Marsquakes or earthquakes on Mars also occur here. National Aeronautics and Space Administration's InSight mission recorded more than 1,300 Marsquakes on Mars between 2018 and 2022. The largest Marsquake was of magnitude 4.7, which is small compared to earthquakes on Earth. But for a colony, this could be very dangerous. Apart from this, Mars has volcanoes like Olympus Mons, which is the largest volcano in the solar system. Even though they are not active right now, their geological history tells us a lot. The Martian surface is not completely stable. Underground, lava tubes, voids, and sinkholes could be hidden all over its surface, which are very dangerous for the construction of a Martian colony. If a habitat is built in a place where the ground itself isn't stable, that structure could collapse. Apart from this, landslides and avalanches have also been observed on the surface of Mars. In 2019, the Curiosity rover took a picture of a landslide near Valles Marineris. These landslides are also no less dangerous on Mars. Space agencies will have to study the surface of Mars more deeply so that safe zones can be identified on Mars. All these forces of Mars are not just physical but psychological as well. The astronauts living on Mars, who will be about 200 million kilometers away from Earth, they will feel very lonely, and the 6 to 24 minute communication delay will increase their frustration even more, especially when they are in trouble. This means that if there is an emergency, they won't be able to get immediate help from Earth. Isolation, claustrophobia, and stress negatively impact mental health. Staying in isolation for a long time can lead people to depression, anxiety, and interpersonal conflicts. So from this, we can understand that every day on Mars will be a battle for survival. National Aeronautics and Space Administration and other space agencies are working on this. But the isolation on Mars is so extreme that no training can fully prepare you for it. If an astronaut suffers a mental breakdown, they could become a danger to the entire colony. The lack of resources on Mars is a major horror. On Earth, we get water, oxygen, and food easily, but on Mars, water is scarce. It exists in the form of ice in polar ice caps or beneath the ground. Perseverance rover conducted an experiment in 2021 to extract oxygen from the Martian atmosphere, but producing enough oxygen for a colony is still a distant dream. In any emergency, these things cannot be supplied. On Earth, these are available everywhere, but people living on Mars might not be so lucky. Growing food here is not easy either. The soil on Mars lacks nutrients, and perchlorates make it even more toxic. Farming can be done in hydroponics and controlled environments, but building and maintaining these systems will be very expensive. If any system fails, the entire colony could face starvation. Now the question is, can humanity overcome the challenges of Mars? National Aeronautics and Space Administration SpaceX, European Space Agency, and China's Space Agency are working day and night for colonization on Mars. Elon Musk's dream is to establish a colony of 1 million people on Mars by 2050. But considering these hurdles, how realistic does this dream seem to you? It's impossible to stop the sandstorms on Mars. However, dust-resistant materials, electrostatic cleaning, and underground habitats may solve these issues. Similarly, for radiation, lead-lined suits, bunkers, and lava tubes can be used. And in the same way, we do have something to fight against these forces of Mars, but even after all this, These forces of Mars are so great that even a small mistake can put the future of the entire colony at risk. The Columbia shuttle disaster in 2003 and the crash of the Mars polar lander in 1999, it reminds us that there is no margin of error in space exploration, and this risk will be even greater on Mars. Mars is not just a destination, it's not a place where we'll find peace or where we can live without worries. Rather, it's a challenge that we'll have to face every day. It's a place where the forces of nature test every human effort. But will we be able to overcome these forces, or will Mars always remain an unsolved mystery? What is your opinion on this? Please let us know in the comments section. Have you ever wondered about a planet that is now covered in dust and ice? There used to be oceans there, rivers used to flow there. It was once a home to lush green landscapes, blue skies, and flowing water. Yes, Mars, which we now call the Red Planet, has always been an unsolved mystery for scientists and astronomers. But now National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Curiosity rover has made a discovery that could completely change what we know about the past of this planet. This discovery is so important that it is being called a missing puzzle piece in the history of Mars. What exactly is this discovery, and how can it reveal the mysterious past of Mars? Let's embark on a journey to one of the most fascinating planets in our solar system. Today, we will talk about the exciting discovery recently made by National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Curiosity rover. On the surface of Mars, iron-rich carbonate materials, especially siderite, have been found. This discovery could be a major step in understanding the ancient climate of Mars and its potential habitability. In this video, we will learn what these carbonate minerals actually are. How did Curiosity discover them, and how does this discovery strengthen the possibility of water and life on Mars in the past? Along with that, we will also talk about Mars' carbon cycle and the mystery of its lost atmosphere. So get ready for a story that will take us deep into the ancient world of Mars. Mars, the red planet, has always been a center of attraction for humanity. Its vast red volcanoes like Olympus Mons and valleys like Valles Marineris truly make it a mysterious planet. But the mystery of Mars is not just about its features. Many scientists believe that about 3.5 to 4 billion years ago, the environment of Mars was completely different. Back then, there used to be rivers, lakes, and maybe even oceans of liquid water here. Mars' atmosphere was filled with carbon dioxide, which kept the planet warm through the greenhouse effect. But as time passed, something very mysterious happened to Mars, something truly catastrophic. Because of this, Mars lost most of its atmosphere and became a cold, dry, and barren planet. Is it really true that there was once life on Mars? And if so, where is the evidence for it? The recent discoveries by the Curiosity rover are a big step toward answering this question. Curiosity rover is National Aeronautics and Space Administration's advanced robotic explorer, which landed in Mars' Gale crater in August 2012. Gale crater was chosen for this mission because it is considered to be an ancient lake bed where water once existed. Curiosity's mission is to study the soil, rocks, and atmosphere of Mars so that it can be determined whether the right conditions for microbial life ever existed there. This rover is a mobile laboratory equipped with 17 cameras, a laser, a drill, and sophisticated instruments like CHEMIN, which stands for Chemistry and Mineralogy. Curiosity takes clear pictures of Mars and more, but it can also drill into soil and rocks to analyze their chemical and mineral composition. Curiosity rover recently found iron-rich slopes on Mount Sharp in Gale crater. It has discovered large deposits of carbonate minerals, especially siderite. Siderite is an iron carbonate mineral that forms from the chemical reaction of carbon dioxide, water, and rocks. This discovery is important because carbonate minerals are an important marker of the ancient environmental conditions that once existed here. Scientists have previously seen carbonates on Mars as well through rovers, orbiters, and Martian meteorites. But Curiosity's discovery provides new and exclusive details. Curiosity drilled into the sulfate-rich layers of Mount Sharp and collected samples from a depth of 3 to 4 centimeters. These samples were studied by the Chemin instrument using X-ray diffraction, which found that the rocks contain 5 to 10% siderite. This was truly an astonishing discovery because orbital satellites had never detected such a large amount of carbonates on the surface of Mars before. Scientists believe that the presence of magnesium sulfate had hidden these carbonates, which is why we were never able to find them before. This discovery is important for several reasons. The presence of siderite is evidence that Mars's ancient atmosphere was filled with carbon dioxide, which through the greenhouse effect kept the planet warm enough for liquid water to exist on the surface. And this discovery supports our habitability models, which say that Mars was once habitable. This research is being led by University of U. Associate Professor Bantutolo from Calgary says, "We know that Mars was habitable and the habitability models are correct." The discovery of carbonates indicates that there was a water cycle on Mars which could be quite similar to the carbon cycle on Earth. On Earth, the carbon cycle keeps carbon available to us. It keeps moving between the atmosphere, oceans, and rocks, which is essential for life. The presence of siderite and iron oxyhydroxide on Mars suggests that carbon was cycling between Mars's atmosphere and rocks. But somewhere, Mars' carbon cycle was imbalanced. Due to the lack of plate tectonics like on Earth, Mars locked more carbon dioxide from its atmosphere into rocks. And the effect of this was that carbon monoxide too rapidly decreased from Mars's atmosphere. As a result, the atmosphere became thinner, and due to the decrease in greenhouse gases, it started cooling down rapidly, and in this way, the entire nature of a once lush planet completely changed. Apart from this, data from Curiosity and orbital maps showed that carbonate layers on the surface of Mars had trapped a huge amount of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. If carbonates are also present in Mars's other sulfate-rich layers, then this could explain a large part of the planet's lost atmosphere. Curiosity made this discovery through its advanced drilling and analysis capability. The rover's drill system digs into the surface to collect samples. These are put into the instrument, which uses X-ray diffraction to study the rock and mineral compositions. Samples from Mount and Johnson Wells, Keramin, Astromaterials, Ossasoch, and Ethic were processed and further studied in the Electricity on vlog. The samples were sent to National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Ames. Your provided solution is being analyzed with the Citrera hat. These minerals were probably formed under dry conditions, where evaporation probably occurred after chemical reactions between water and rocks. This process tells the story of Mars's ancient atmosphere when the planet was warm and full of water. The discovery of siderite further strengthens the possibility of life on Mars. But it's still a kind of mystery. 3 things are necessary for life: liquid water, an energy source, and chemical building blocks. Curiosity has already found evidence of liquid water in Gale crater, like sedimentary rocks and wave ripples, which indicate ancient lakes. As an energy source, sunlight or volcanic activity can be used. Now, carbonates and previously discovered organic molecules like alkanes prove the presence of chemical building blocks. But the high radiation on the surface of Mars is not suitable for life. Scientists believe that beneath the surface, where radiation is lower, there might be microbial life. The presence of siderite and clay-rich sediments indicates that organic compounds and fossils can remain preserved on Mars for a long time. So if there was ever life on Mars, we can definitely find evidence of it in these sediments. This discovery is important not just for Mars, but also for our own Earth. Ben Totolo says that she is working on ways to convert human-made carbon dioxide into stable carbonate minerals to fight climate change on Earth. Perhaps nature has done the same on Mars, locked carbon dioxide into rocks. The discovery could help improve carbon sequestration techniques on Earth, that is, the technology to capture carbon from the atmosphere and store it safely. Exactly, that's what we're doing on Earth to fight climate change. It's possible that nature has already done that on Mars. Curiosity's discovery gives a new direction to the study of Mars. National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Perseverance rover, which landed in the Jezero crater in 2021. It is now collecting samples. These will be brought back to Earth in the future through the Mars Sample Return mission. If these samples contain fossilized microbes or complex organic compounds, it could be definitive evidence of life on Mars. The European Space Agency's ExoMars rover and Mars's Tianwen-1 mission are searching for life on Mars. The Mars Sample Return mission, which will launch in the 2030s, will bring Martian soil back to Earth. Then scientists will study these samples in depth in advanced laboratories. And then we might find some answers about life on Mars. The research being conducted on Mars is not only important for scientists, but also for all of humanity. If we find evidence of life on Mars, it will prove that life is not limited to just our planet Earth. And maybe we will also be surprised to find that life on our Earth also came from Mars. This discovery will make our search for life in the universe even easier. This will help us understand exactly where and what we need to look for if we want to search for life on any planet. Also, evidence of habitability on Mars could pave the way for Mars colonization in the future. National Aeronautics and Space Administration and SpaceX are already planning to send humans to Mars. If Mars was ever habitable, then maybe we can make it habitable again. Curiosity rover's discovery has given us a chance to understand its past more closely. By understanding its past, we can shape its future. And that's why this discovery can give a new direction to all of humanity. But this is merely the start. Curiosity and other rovers are revealing even greater mysteries on Mars' surface. And in the future, we may find even more astonishing discoveries. Was there ever life on Mars, or has this planet always been barren and desolate? But what do you have to say about this? Be sure to let us know in the comment section below. Friends, how did you like this video?